The HOA had always been a thorn in my side, but I usually let them talk. Most of the time, their complaints were petty things, like how long the grass was near the road or the color of my barn door being too rustic. I never cared much. I don't live my life to please people like that. I mind my business. I work my land. I take care of my dog, and I enjoy my peace. But one summer afternoon, I decided to set up a small campsite next to the lake on the back end of my ranch. It's one of the prettiest spots in the whole county. Crystal water, a steady breeze, and a clearing perfect for a campfire. I brought a tent, a cooler full of cold drinks, some steaks for the grill, and my golden retriever, Duke, who was happier than a kid on vacation. We were just going to relax for the weekend, no stress, no problems. The mistake I made was forgetting that the HOA board president, Karen Whitlock, had a pair of binoculars permanently glued to her eyes. She saw everything, and she hated everything. The moment she spotted my camp setup from her porch half a mile away, she decided I must be a trespasser. Which is funny, considering this land has been in my family for generations. But Karen always loved to act like she owned everything she could see. I was flipping a steak on the grill when her voice came slicing across the field like a knife. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. Duke perked up, tail stiff, already recognizing the tone. Karen was marching across the grass in a bright purple pantsuit, holding a clipboard like it was a weapon. She didn't greet me, didn't ask, didn't confirm anything. She just pointed at me like a queen announcing execution. "You cannot be here," she shouted. "This area is for association-approved activities only." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Karen, this is my land. The whole lake is on my property line. Always has been." She shook her head like I was the crazy one. "That's private community lake access. Property of the HOA." "That's funny," I said, grabbing a document from my backpack, "because I have the deed that says otherwise. You want to take a look?" But she didn't want facts. She wanted control. Her voice got louder, angrier, shriller. "I don't care what fake papers you have. You are trespassing, and I am authorized to enforce community regulations." I just smiled. "No, you're not." That's when she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. I watched her from across the campfire, still tending to my food, while Duke chewed a stick and the sun glimmered off the lake behind us. "Yes, I need officers immediately," she screeched. "There is a man illegally camping on association grounds and refusing to leave." I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I knew exactly who was going to get that call. About 15 minutes later, 2 patrol units came rolling down the dirt road leading to the edge of my ranch. Karen crossed her arms like she was about to watch her grand victory play out. She stepped forward and pointed dramatically at me. "Officer, arrest him," she demanded. The 2 deputies got out, looked at me, and then looked right back at her. I could see them holding back laughter. She had no idea who she had called. I stood up, brushed my jeans off, and clipped my badge onto my belt. She finally saw it. She froze. The color drained from her face. I spoke calmly, not raising my voice. "I didn't need to. Ma'am, I am the sheriff of this county. This is my property, and you are trespassing." One deputy stepped forward. "Ma'am, please step back. You have no authority to enforce anything here." Karen tried to recover, but her voice came out choked and small. No, this can't be. They told me the HOA controls this lake." "The HOA controls the common areas," I corrected. "This isn't one. The property line is marked clearly on county records. You'd know that if you bothered to look." She opened her mouth to argue, but the deputies were already escorting her back toward the road. She didn't get arrested. I'm not that cruel, but she got a stern warning about harassment and trespassing, the kind that goes into a record somewhere she didn't want it to. As she walked away, fuming, she turned back and shouted, "This isn't over." I smiled and patted Duke's head. "For your sake, Karen, I hope it is." When the deputies were about to leave, one of them looked at the grill and smirked. "Those steaks smell good, Sheriff. You got enough for company." I nodded. "Grab a plate." We spent the rest of the evening laughing, eating, watching the sun go down over the quiet water. Peace reclaimed. No HOA queen in sight. The funniest part, the next HOA meeting, Karen tried to bring up sheriff camping violation concerns, but the board voted unanimously to shut her down. Apparently, she'd caused so many problems over the years that this was the final straw. She ended up being removed from the board completely. Sometimes, justice is just a steak, a sunset, and the right timing. After that weekend, things around the neighborhood changed in a way that was almost amusing to watch. For the first time in years, people waved when they drove past my ranch. Folks who usually avoided eye contact because they didn't want to get involved in HOA squabbles were suddenly friendly. It was like someone finally took the lid off a pressure cooker. Turns out, Karen had been running the HOA like a tiny monarchy. People weren't just annoyed with her, they were tired. Tired of letters in the mailbox. Tired of fines for things like garden gnomes and mailbox colors. Tired of her marching up and down the street looking for violations like it was her full-time job. When word spread that she got escorted off my property for causing trouble, it was like the entire neighborhood took a breath for the first time in years. A few days later, I was sitting on the porch with Duke, sipping coffee. The air was cool, the kind that promises a good day. A pickup truck rolled up to the gate, but this time, it wasn't police or HOA. It was my neighbor, old Mr. Halpern. He's lived around here longer than anyone and barely talks, but when he does, every word matters. He leaned out his window and just said, "Heard you had a bit of a situation." I chuckled. "You could call it that." He nodded once, slow. About time someone put her in her place. Then he tipped his hat and drove off. That was the whole conversation. But I understood exactly what he meant. It wasn't about embarrassment. It wasn't about pride. It was about peace, and finally getting it back. Later that week, I ran into a few more neighbors while I was grabbing supplies in town. They weren't afraid to talk anymore. One family told me how Karen tried to find them because their kids drew chalk art on the driveway. Another said she threatened to sue because their wind chimes were too loud. Someone else said she once demanded a man repaint his fence 5 times in 3 months because she didn't like the shade of white. That wasn't a homeowners association that was harassment. I realized something then. The HOA was never the problem. It was the person running it. So I attended the next meeting not as sheriff, not as someone ready for a fight, just as a landowner and a neighbor. The room was full, every seat taken. Karen wasn't sitting at the front like usual. She was off to the side, arms crossed, jaw clenched so tight I thought it might snap. A board member cleared his throat and read an official statement. Due to repeated overreach, abuse of authority, and misuse of HOA procedures, Karen was removed as president effective immediately. The applause that followed was loud enough to shake the lights. She didn't say anything. She just grabbed her purse and stormed out. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just felt a calm settle over my shoulders, the same kind as the lake on a still morning. A few days later, I went right back to my camp spot. Same tent, same grill, same dog, same quiet water. The world felt right again. And this time, no one came running across the grass yelling. Just the sound of the breeze, and Duke breathing slow beside me. Peace, real peace. The way it always should have been.